Hello all! About 2 years ago I wrote on my YouTube community tab that I began studying in University of Helsinki. And I made a video about my progress, but it has been a year since that video. I graduated, but how did that happen? Let's go 3 years back in time. I was sitting on the toilet reading a booklet listing the courses organized by the local adult education center, which we call työväenopisto or kansalaisopisto. And I saw an advertisement for basic studies in education sciences organized jointly with the Open University in University of Turku. It cost 400 euros. Previously, from 2003 for 5 years, I studied the Japanese language similarly in an adult education center, and I knew I could do it while working full-time, so I enrolled just to gain some experience about university studies and to maybe learn new things about teaching in general. While waiting for the course to start, I wanted to learn how open universities work, and I also browsed the course offering from the Open University in University of Helsinki, and I saw that they were also offering the introductory course to special education for free. In a moment's whim, I enrolled in there as well. Both courses began in September, and by April I was done. In interest of improving my chances of getting a job as a teacher someday, I then applied to the intermediate studies too. This cost me 460 euros. But I had also entered an application for subject teachers bachelor's plus master's program in University of Helsinki, and I was accepted. I couldn't do both, so I was forced to forfeit the intermediate studies in education sciences. I was not able to get a refund. So I began meticulously crafting my study plan. From the get-go, I was definitely not aiming just to get a degree, but to study all of the 4 subjects nominally belonging to this study program, so I booked up a few courses in mathematics, physics, chemistry and of course computer science. During the orientation period, a tutor managed to convince me that physics would be a much more interesting primary subject than mathematics is, so I swapped out mathematics for a second subject and physics for the first one. Before any of these courses even started, and indeed before I even finished the course that should be the first course for every student, the Orientation to Students' Digital Skills, I completed my first computer science course, the first half of Computer Fundamentals. I also discovered that the mathematics in physics is 10 times worse than the mathematics in mathematics, so the brief moment as a primary physicist ended up very brief indeed. Mathematics was back in the first place. Because I had previously studied the education sciences, I applied to have them recognized as a completion to some parts of my teacher's pedagogic studies. That shaved 10 credits off my master's degree studies. I completed a few other CS courses using a general exam, so about a month since I began the studies, I had already racked up 17 credits worth CS studies. However, I dropped out from the basics of chemistry course because it turns out to be too much work while I was already studying 18 other courses at the same time. By the end of the fall semester, I had almost completed the basic and intermediate studies in computer science and also 2 courses from the basic studies in physics and several in mathematics, including both courses in logic and both courses in statistics. After the first year was over, I had completed the basic studies in physics, all mandatory studies in computer science except for software development methods, most of the mathematics courses in my to-do list, all the language courses, and almost everything in teacher-specific general courses except the science education practical application course. Now it was time for me to turn my eye towards the teacher's pedagogic courses. The orientation seminar was held in June 2022, and I got enough information to know which courses to start doing first. This was going to be a very heavy year, as my plan was also to put chemistry back in the menu. In July, I finally managed to get software development methods recognized based on the work that I had done on that terminal, finally completing my studies on computer science. I also realized that I should start working on my bachelor's thesis if I am ever going to graduate. In early September, we had a 3-day period of introduction to school. This meant going to the school, high school, and attending 3 classes, making observations, and then discussing them later with the other teacher students on each day. Then there were the teacher's laboratory courses for physics, called Experimentality in Didactic Physics. This was an interesting pair of courses and honestly much more useful than I had expected. We did many experiments in physics and systematically analyzed a method to estimate, verify, and build new concepts upon existing knowledge. In late October, during the autumn break of schools, we organized a science camp for elementary schoolers, thus completing the course on the science education application. The kids really liked the chemistry demo. Immediately after that began the period of basic practice, which lasted almost 2 months. I planned and held 4 classes in mathematics and 4 classes in computer science to middle school students, teaching them algebra and Python programming. There were a lot of other activities in the practice period, and it was warned that students should not take any other courses during that time. Despite this, I also did the Mathematics Pro seminar, giving a presentation on the Mandelbrot fractal and a few other things. Logic is one of my favorite fields in mathematics, so as completely extra, I did a philosophy course on logic. After that was completed, I wanted to do more philosophy, so I booked the metaphysics course.
You are familiar with the thought experiment, the ship of Theseus, in the field of identity metaphysics?
It ended up very interesting and I enjoyed it. I also became interested in how theology studies in university work, so I booked a few of those. But I soon realized that I definitely did not have the time to study theology at this time, so I cancelled it, at least for now. Now the second semester was nearing its end, so I would really have to start working on my bachelor's thesis if I wanted to graduate in 2 years' time, as was my plan. So I attended the bachelor's thesis seminar, got myself a supervisor for the thesis, and I began thinking of an idea. I quickly got one, and I set out to work on the thesis on natural deduction in propositional logic. In March, we turned in the final assignment in didactic physics, thus marking the end of my physics studies. But at the same time, the advanced practice part of the teacher's pedagogic studies had begun. But I also began doing the basic laboratory work in chemistry. This lab work required no less than 100% attendance, which made it very tricky to plan the schedule for the teacher practice, which lasted for 1.5 months, but I was able to pull it off. In 2 years since starting, I finished my bachelor's thesis, and it was graded and I got full marks for it. At this point, the only thing that was missing from my bachelor's degree was the bachelor's thesis seminar, which I booked for mid-April. In the seminar, I gave a presentation on my thesis and I actually put it online on my other YouTube channel. Thus, on April 25th, 2023, I graduated as a Bachelor of Science. I also finished the lab work in chemistry and began looking at a new subject, psychology. In the advanced training, I once again held 4 classes in mathematics and 4 classes in computer science, teaching middle schoolers and high schoolers about GIMP, PowerPoint, Excel, typing, and about first and second degree functions, and about correlation, linear regression, and statistical probability, and trying my hand at designing and giving an exam. After my graduation, I finished the advanced training as well as the pedagogic studies as a whole. I also finished the subject studies lab works in organic chemistry, which once again I enjoyed a great deal. Then it was the summer and I was back at work doing embedded programming. But I was also doing psychology studies. I was planning to get this video out in June, but things don't always work that way. I was working as a course assistant on some computer science courses, so I made some teaching videos for the Introduction to Databases course. Those videos can be currently found on my other YouTube channel. The summer was over sooner than you would hope, and a new semester began and the third year in my studies. Now was time to get started with the master's thesis, which at this point is really the only thing missing from my graduation as a Master of Science. Although I do want to get the thesis done as quickly as possible so that it's done and no longer ahead of me, in reality I am not in any hurry whatsoever. The moment that I graduate, I immediately lose the right to do more of these extra studies for free, so there is actually a negative incentive towards graduation. So I am still doing the rest of studies in chemistry as well as psychology. It is now the end of 2023 and my master's degree is being graded by the thesis supervisor, and in half a year I am wrapping up my psychology and chemistry studies as well. I'm still not sure if I want to continue studying philosophy or maybe theology. Becoming a graduate student, that is, pursuing a doctorate, I am kind of desperately in need of some free time too. Many paths are open. But I also have to focus on my work. What work? Driving a bus? Nope, I haven't done that for a long time. I am still employed as an engineer for embedded development and have been since 2017. I hope you had a fantastic 2023. I wish you health and blessings, and hopefully we will see very soon again.